Hello everyone and welcome to episode 22 of my World of Warcraft series. Today we are going to be spending quite a bit of time questing in the Wetlands, but first I have some mail in my mailbox, so let's go ahead and check this out. And it looks like that the Stormbringer belt that I put up on the auction house last episode actually sold, and I now have 7 gold and 25 silver added into my wallets. That basically takes the amount of gold I had, doubled it, and then adds it on, which is very nice. I'm now at almost 12 gold. I'm at 11.5 gold. But the other 2 items that we put on the auction house did not sell, so I might go ahead and just sell this to a vendor. Goodbye friends. We got another 35 silver there, which is very nice. But let's go ahead and head out into Rethiel Harbor. We were just in the inn. Let's go ahead and pick up a couple of quests, one of which is going to be from First Mate Fitzsimmons here. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the Greenwarden. You've heard of the Greenwarden? You're not looking for him, are you? Well, I say you're crazy if you are, but who am I to keep a fool from his death? If you're seeking this beast, then I hear it is in the marsh east of the road where it forks to Dunmotor. He's lurking there among the crocs and worse. And leave your money here, you won't need it where you're going, and you don't want to chip old Greenie's tooth on your gold when he bites you in half, do you? Let's go ahead and accept this quest. So it looks like there's some sort of monster out in the marsh that we can go ahead and interact with, and it seems like it's kind of a little bit of a dangerous monster, so we're going to have to be careful when we are out there. So let's go ahead and leave Rethiel Harbor through the one way in from the road here. So let's go ahead and come across this bridge, and I can go ahead and pick up another quest here. In my quest log, I currently have 18 quests, so I can't pick up too many, so I'm not picking up every single quest, but I can go ahead and pick up this quest for the search for the excavation team. So Taro here says, my wife Marin has been sending me letters each week for the past month. She's part of the Welgar excavation team, but it's been nearly 2 weeks since her last correspondence. Surely something is wrong. Longbraid said that he would send a scout to check up on things if we did not hear from the team soon. I assume that scout is you, Athos. Find Marin at the excavation site to the east. Go ahead and accept this quest, and let's go ahead and run east along the road here, and we can go ahead, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is run super far east, and we're going to go ahead and head to the Greenwarden. Since we are passing by, let's go ahead and see if this merchant has anything valuable. Has 3 healing potions, which let's go ahead and just spend 9 silver on. We could use these at some point to get a little bit of extra health, especially since we don't really have any healing abilities. And then right into the marsh here, across this little bit of a creek here, and then up the mountain, we should be able to see the Greenwarden coming up here. And there he is down there in a little bit of the valley there, and there are a bunch of flowers around him, which is very cool. A little bit of a clearing as well. Rethiel the Greenwarden, let's go ahead and have a chat. And he says, the roots and ferns speak well of you, small one. Although I have many names, I answer to only a few, but you can call me Rethiel. And you must hearken, for these lands weep from festered wounds, and I would charge you to heal them. So we now have a quest, Trampling Paws. So near the gate to Algaz, there are a bunch of gnolls at the gnoll camp there. So we now have a quest to kill 15 moss-hide gnolls and 10 moss-hide mongrels. So let's go ahead and pick up this quest. And then checking out on our map here, we have the Trampling Paws quest over here. So let's go ahead and try to head back to the road and then head back towards Dun Algaz a little bit. And we can go ahead and fight a bunch of gnolls over here. And I see here on the left of the road here, we have some moss-hide fen runners. We don't need to fight those. There's a mongrel over there, but I think if we run a little bit further down here, we can see more of the gnolls that we need to fight. There are also some crocolisks around here that we're probably going to have to deal with. I really enjoy the dwarven areas here because we can just see a ton of dwarven structures built into the mountains, and we can just assume that there are a ton of dwarves that are living in those areas, or maybe those are abandoned ruins that the dwarves have vacated because of some various threats. Let's go ahead and start fighting some of the gnolls here. Loading in right here, I see a huge gnoll camp with 8 gnolls in there. I'm going to go ahead and kind of do my best to avoid the bigger camps, and I'm just going to fight all the gnolls that are hanging out on the outer edge in the open fields here. So I have been playing my Night Elf Druid that I talked about 2 episodes ago, I believe, where I have been playing as a balanced druid and just kind of experiencing that part of the game that I really haven't played too much of before. I played balanced druid in Cataclysm and Mist of Pandaria and had a decent amount of fun with it, but I never played it in vanilla, and balanced druid in vanilla is definitely considerably different compared to Cataclysm, and it's also very different compared to Wrath of Lich King as well. It's just a very kind of unique experience, and I've been having a lot of fun kind of just playing through the game as a balanced druid and experiencing all that stuff that is going on with the balance specialization. And as I've been playing through it, I've kind of learned why people don't like it, but I'm also still a little bit confused on why people don't entirely like it, because I've been enjoying it and I've been having fun with it, and it doesn't seem like the worst thing ever, but it definitely kind of feels like any caster specialization, like priest, I guess, or warlock or mage, if warlock and mage had like very limited damaging abilities, where I feel like there's not a lot of stuff you can do with the balance druid, where I kind of feel like I'm just using really only like 3 different skills as a balance druid at this point, and I'm not entirely sure if that's what I'm supposed to be doing when playing balance, but it feels very limited, and it kind of feels a little bit boring in that way, where with like a mage I have so many more like opportunities for like spell casting, where there's like so much more that I can do. And yeah, I mostly use like Frostbolt over and over again, where like on balance druid I use like basically Wrath over and over again and keep like a Moonfire dot up, and I'm kind of trying to figure out like what's the best opportunity to use Starfire. But as I'm casting Frostbolt, I have the opportunity to do like Fire Blast, like I did like right there, or I can use like other skills like my Frost Nova, my Blizzard, and like I have a ton of like special opportunities like Blink and stuff, where with like a Balanced Druid you do have like all of your Bear form and Cat form abilities and stuff like that that can like add on to the build, but that's mostly kind of just like if you need like a quick stun or if you need like sprint and cat form or something, where when it comes to like purely fighting as like a spellcaster where you're dealing damage with like your spells, like I feel like there's not a lot of stuff going on, and it feels limiting in that way, and it also feels a little bit boring in that way as well, which like isn't too big of a deal, and I can see why people don't enjoy it for like that aspect, but also doesn't feel like underpowered or anything, like where I feel really good playing the specialization and like doing quests and just fighting monsters and stuff like that. It just feels kind of like a spellcaster, like a priest kind of to me, where I feel like I do have to drink a lot. Well, I guess if you have like a lot of spirits stacked up on your priest, you don't really have to drink, but like with my druid I kind of just have to drink a lot, and it kind of sucks compared to like mage, because then you don't have water, where with warlock you could balance out like your health and mana like through your spells and stuff, though I never got really good at that when I was playing through my warlock back with original Vanilla WoW's release, well, the classic Vanilla WoW's release. So I do feel like I'm drinking a lot and I'm kind of spending a lot of time drinking, but like when it comes to like the actual fighting, and like as long as I have mana, like it feels pretty fine to play, and I don't see too many issues with playing it. I've definitely been enjoying it decently well, and I've been having fun with it, and I am not too high of a level yet, so I guess my opinion will change over time, and it's probably going to be something that like I never play again. So I'm very much cherishing the time that I'm spending playing the specialization, because it's probably going to be the only time that I do it. And like vanilla specifically, of course I might level up Balanced Druid at some point in like some other version of the game, Rathless King or Rethiel or something like that. So I'm just very much enjoying it in the moment, and I'm excited to see what it's like when I get to higher and higher levels. Right now I think I'm like level 23 on the Balanced Druid, and I've definitely been enjoying it so far to this point, but we'll see what happens when we get to some of the higher level areas of the game. Especially like around level 50, I feel like it might get very, very slow and very, very boring on a Balanced Druid, as it kind of does with like many different specializations and classes in the game. I'm exceptionally excited for like level 40. I think you unlock the Moonkin form, and I'm excited to play through all of that and experience the Moonkin, though it doesn't seem like it's super beneficial compared to like maybe what cat form is to like a feral druid, but it still seems like something super fun and would be very helpful with me fighting things in the world, so I'm excited to do that. But that idea of me playing a Balanced Druid and kind of experiencing it in almost its entirety, I'm not going to be doing like any raiding or like a lot of like dungeons and grinding and stuff like that, but like for the most part throughout like the full leveling experience, experiencing all Balanced Druid and then like calling it good kind of feels very nice to me, because it feels a little bit on like the completionist side, where I've talked about like completionism in like World of Warcraft before, and I'm definitely kind of like enjoying that aspect of it. But it kind of helps me determine what I enjoy playing in this game, and I've been playing this game for like a very long time, and like I've learned that like Mage, for example, is like one of my favorite classes to play, and I'm kind of learning like maybe Balanced Druid, not my favorite, even though Druid as a whole I kind of enjoy. I'm thinking about kind of like deep diving into like Druid and like Classic and Wrath a little bit and kind of experiencing everything, and then I feel like I'm probably not going to play too much Druid like going forward after I do a bunch of like playthroughs of like different Druid specializations, because I've like experienced it all and I've kind of learned While when I was younger, Druid was one of my favorite classes to play. It's not so much my favorite class to play anymore. That's kind of how I feel about Death Knight and Wrathlich King, where I enjoyed it a ton when I was a kid, and nowadays, while I do still enjoy it, I feel like it's not my favorite class in the game, if I'm being completely honest, and there are other options that I would enjoy more so. But on that note, I have finished killing all of the gnolls in this area. I actually killed one extra because I pulled 2 mongrels there. Let's go ahead and head back to the Greenwarden, and we can go ahead and turn in this quest. And here we are back at the Greenwarden. Interestingly enough, I noticed this faction is technically part of Stormwind, which means that Horde players can't do this quest, and we might get Stormwind reputation here when we turn in this quest. I did not get Stormwind reputation, but that is okay, but I did level up to level 25, and we now have this new quest here called Fire Taboo. The moss hides are cutting the trees of the wetlands using the tree's flesh to warm themselves with fire. I will suffer this pain no longer. Rid the moss hides of the crude flints, the tools they use to make fires. The flints are borne by all moss hides except the smaller moss hide gnolls and moss hide mongrels, so the ones that we just fought do not have them. So now we can head west, or we could head south to the little bit of the camp that is like just north of where we were fighting. I want to go ahead and head west, and we can go ahead and fight some of the moss hides here. With leveling up to level 25, we have unlocked a new talent, and we have also unlocked a new talent line here. So we were thinking about what talents we want to pick a couple of episodes ago, and I think I am going to go ahead and continue this improved Frost Nova here, so then we can go into Shatter. So let's go ahead and I'll just pick Frost Nova, and then I think the next thing I'll do is go into Shatter, and then I will also want to go into Frostbite around that time as well. So maybe I'll just do 1, 1, 1, 1 and just like alternate back and forth there. So here is a no camp here that we can go ahead and start working on this next quest. So we need to gather 9 crude flints, and in the best case scenario we'll only have to kill 9 gnolls, but knowing vanilla World of Warcraft we're going to have to kill a few more than that. So let's go ahead and get started here. This area seems kind of dangerous even though it doesn't like on the surface, but I feel like it's very easy for me to get pinned in and attacked by multiple enemies here, because there are a ton of crocolisks about, and then there are a ton of gnolls around here as well, and we can see that they're kind of concentrated into camps as gnolls tend to be. So we're going to have to be really careful with when we pull, that we don't accidentally pull a crocolisk as well, and that we don't like attack an entire camp at the same exact time, because we don't want to deal with all of that. There's our first piece of crude flint. That is very nice. Let's go ahead and just loop back around here, and hopefully we can kind of avoid that group of 4 that are sitting right there, and we can pull some more gnolls that are hanging out on the outskirts. There's a ton of oozes on that side as well, so that's a threat we won't have to worry about as well if we have to run that way. Looks like we could run this way northwest a little bit and it would be safe. So in the last episode, I felt super inspired to write a ton of stuff in the description for that episode, kind of talking about where in the road we are now. And if you want to read that full thing, go ahead and hop into my last episode and just read through the description and stuff like that. If you read it, thank you so much for reading through it. If you want to read it again, go ahead. But I kind of just wanted to highlight a little bit about what I talked about. So we are in the Wetlands, and for the most part we have been exploring the Kingdom of Stormwind, other than a couple of episodes where we went to Loch Modan as well as Dunmerle, which is 2 zones in Casmodan. We have spent all of our time within the Kingdom of Stormwind, and when we are looking at the Eastern Kingdoms, it is kind of like a collection of multiple kingdoms north and south down the continent, where there are a ton of different areas of history and pockets of humanity and elves and trolls and stuff like that that make up this entire continent. So for the most part, we have been exploring the Kingdom of Stormwind, which is where the humans of Stormwind, which are the humans that are playable at this point of the game in World of Warcraft, come from. And we've also explored Casmodan, which is another kingdom that you could count within like the entirety of the Eastern Kingdoms, and we have helped them out as well. And we have seen a little bit about like some other kingdoms that exist, specifically with the Dark Iron Dwarves, which we have barely interacted with, but they are another kind of kingdom within the Eastern Kingdoms, and they're at this point in the game a hostile kingdom, and they are dangerous to us and we want to deal with them. But when we look at the Eastern Kingdoms as a whole, we can kind of divide the entire continent into 3 distinct continents. So here I'm in Wetlands. I'm just going to zoom out really quick, and we can kind of categorize this into 3 distinct areas. So here we can kind of see there is a giant river here that is going from the Barradin Bay into the Forbidding Sea on the eastern side of the continent. And when we look at the southern half of this landmass here, we can divide the southern landmass into 2 distinct continents, and I'm just going to kind of with my cursor draw a line right through here, like more or less. And the northern part here is Casmodan, and this is the area that we've been exploring a ton of right now in the most recent episodes, where we are in the Wetlands right now, and we've been in Dunmerrow, and we've been in Lochmodan, and it's home of the dwarves and the Dark Iron dwarves and a bunch of different threats and stuff that we will be experiencing with. And the southern half of that landmass is what is considered the continent of Azeroth, and it is different than the planet Azeroth, which is the planet as a whole. The continent shares the same name as the planet, but of course the continent is not the planet, and vice versa, you know, geography, astrophysics, something like that. But when we look at Azeroth, it is mostly composed of the Kingdom of Stormwind, which is where humans in this game come from, and is where we've spent a lot of time with, and is where we have been doing a lot of stuff with, and it's where we're going to continue doing some stuff with all the way up until around level 60. Same thing with Casmodan, we are going to be in this area until about level 60. But starting soon, within like 5-ish levels, we're going to be heading to the 3rd continent in the Eastern Kingdoms, and that is the continent of Lordaeron. So it is this entire northern area up here, and it is the most like dense area as far as like kingdoms go. So we have the Kingdom of Lordaeron, which shares the same name as the continent, a little confusing, same thing with like Azeroth and Azeroth. Lordaeron, which has a lot of history, especially with like Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3, where we'll be talking more about that in a little bit. So I just pulled that noble camp there. I'm just going to run this way a little bit. But looking at the continent of Lordaeron, there are a ton of other areas there that we will be exploring as well. Specifically, a ton of kingdoms that we're going to be exploring. So some of those kingdoms that we'll be able to explore and we won't be able to explore include Quel'Thalas, include Erethdor, Gilneas, Otrak, and a bunch of other places that we will be experiencing. And this Fin Creeper almost killed me, and I just used a healing potion there and a crit. So I got a lot of health there. Let's go ahead and finish this Fin Creeper real quick, and then I'll go ahead and restore my health. But I'm super excited that once we reach about level 30 that we will start exploring those areas north of here, and I'm super excited to be there. And just like with Azeroth and just like with Casmodan, we're going to be spending a ton of time there all the way up until around level 60, where there are going to be a ton of quests and a ton of areas for us to explore that we can explore in each of these 3 distinct continents. But Wetlands as a zone specifically is super exciting because it is kind of like the northernmost point of Casmodan, where we've spent all of our time in Casmodan and in Stormwind, where we haven't spent any time on Lordaeron. We haven't stepped a foot in that continent yet, or any of the zones up there, but we are at the edge of it, the border of it, and we are just like 5 levels away from being able to explore there, which is super fun and super exciting. And if we were to just head just a little bit north, we can kind of see this road here heading to a little bridge over the river. We can run across that, and we can be in an entirely new area with a ton of lore and history and a ton of stuff for us to do there. But alas, we are about 5-6 levels away, so we will not be going there just yet, because we have been spending a ton of time in 3 zones of Redridge Mountains, Duskwood, and now Wetlands. And for the next several episodes, we're going to be spending a ton of time in these zones and kind of experiencing everything that there's left to explore in these zones. And these 3 zones are going to be the zones that we're bouncing around until about level 30. And once we hit level 30, we're going to unlock a few new zones, or not necessarily unlock, but we're going to unlock quests, I guess. And we're going to be able to fight the monsters in those zones, and we're going to be exploring these entirely new areas once we start reaching a little bit over level 30 and at level 30. And that's kind of a big thing in vanilla World of Warcraft, and like all the way through like Wrath of Lich King, as well as like Cataclysm as well. It is completely different in modern retail WoW from what I have experienced, where when we are leveling from level 1 to level 60 in vanilla WoW, for example, we are going to be bouncing around zones quite a bit. So right now we're bouncing around Redridge, Duskwood, and the Wetlands, and once we're level 30, we're going to be bouncing around a few zones, and we're going to be doing that all the way up until level 60. We're not going to be spending all of our time in one specific zone. We did that with Elven Forest, and we kind of did that with Westfall. The human experience is kind of unique because there are a ton of different zones in like the Kingdom of Stormwind where you can do Red Ridge and Westfall at basically the same time, where if we were playing a Night Elf, we would be doing the equivalent of Red Ridge and Westfall all in one zone. But once we reached the equivalent of Duskwood when we were playing a Night Elf, we would be kind of starting to spread out to a bunch of different zones and doing the stuff like that. We're really starting in Cataclysm. Zones were kind of designed to go from one zone to the next zone to the next zone. We don't really bounce around between zones, and there aren't really quests that take you like all around the world. You have to go like 10 different areas that are all in different corners of the world, and there like aren't too many quests that take you to completely different zones for reasons other than just like directly navigating you to like the start of that zone. So it's a very distinctly different experience from like retail World of Warcraft and like World of Warcraft starting in Cataclysm, where in Classic we're just kind of bouncing all around and doing a ton of stuff and going to a bunch of different areas of the world that are very far away from where you may pick up the quest from. And both of those experiences are good. They have their pros and cons. I feel like for me, if I was more into like the in-game aspect of World of Warcraft, of like doing like heroic dungeons or raids, mythic raids, I would be more interested in the latter, where you kind of just go through zones very quickly and you go from one zone to the next and you're not really spending a ton of time running around the world, traveling and like going to like far away locations. But for me, who's not super interested in like the end game side of things, and I'm more interested in the journey, the questing, the exploring zones, I prefer the former, where you spend a lot of time running around the world, where you really dive into like a bunch of different zones and you experience these zones and you go on long, dangerous quests across the world where you have to go to like super dangerous areas that are very far away from where you pick up the quests, and you have these quest chains that like take you zigzag around continents where you have to go like from Stormwind to Duskwood to Red Ridge and like all around. So for me personally, I definitely enjoyed this questing experience much more. And with the Snow Dead, I am hoping that he has a crude flint on him, and he does. So now we can go ahead and head back towards the Greenwarden and turn this quest in. And here we are back at the Greenwarden. Let's go ahead and turn this quest in, and we get 10 spongy morals, and he says thank you. He's going to smash the flints. And now we have a new quest called Blisters on the Land, where we can kill 12 fin creepers and then return to Rethiel the Greenwarden in the Wetlands. And there is a new robe there, but it's not better than what we have equipped. Let's go ahead and pick up this quest, and then we can go ahead and hunt some of these fin creepers around this marsh here. So I believe these fin creepers are invisible, and I see one right there. And they're also level 25, so it's a little bit dangerous. And it might be a little problematic fighting these fin creepers because they might go invisible if you spot them while we're casting Frostbolt, and then we won't be able to cast Frostbolt on them. So I'd quickly just hit a Fire Blast on this fin creeper, but we might try to do Frostbolt and we'll see if it gets interrupted from them going invisible. Let's go ahead and kind of just keep a keen eye out. I believe we actually have something for invisibility, correct? We do not. I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking of there. It might have been a item we had in our inventory at some point. But let's go ahead and just keep an eye out for these fin creepers. And I see one right there, and he was pretty far away when we saw him, so we might be able to get a little bit close and then start casting Frostbolt here. And it indeed worked, so let's go ahead and just cast a bunch more Frostbolts, and then we can finish him off with a Fire Blast as usual. I've been noticing as I've been playing through this episode that I feel pretty powerful as my mage right now, where I've gotten a little bit close to dying, but I never felt like I was like actually gonna die. I feel like I have fought a ton of things where my health doesn't get super low and my mana doesn't get super low either, which is very nice, where I'm able to pull multiple mobs without having to drink immediately after fighting them. Here we can run under this bridge, which is super fun. And we can go ahead and keep trying to find some of these fin creepers. Just like that one. Returning to the wetlands and running through the marshes and in the water here is always really fun because it reminds me of a memory I had playing this game running as a night elf alongside a gnome, where I, as a night elf, was just running casually along the water where it was pretty much like ankle deep or like shin deep, and the gnome that was running beside me was actually basically underwater, completely submerged in the water, and I think might be able to swim in some areas around here. And it's just funny the height difference that exists within the alliance as a night elf versus a gnome, where the gnomes are basically swimming through here and are basically kind of like having to deal with the water as a threat as well, whereas a night elf, you just casually walk through. So this quest is a little bit challenging because it's kind of on like the time consuming side of things, where I've been spending a lot of time walking down these channels and going to the lakes and stuff and like slowly walking around, and I am kind of stuck at 10 out of 12 where I am not able to find any more fin creepers, and I've returned to like the start of the area where I've killed the fin creepers, I don't know, at this point maybe like half an hour ago, and I cannot find any. It seems like they haven't respawned at all, which is very unfortunate. And I don't mind spending quite a bit of time on quests, though I am kind of wanting to finish this quest up. It's just interesting that they seem to be on a very long respawn timer. It looks like one spawned right over there and another one spawned right there, so this is very good for me. It looks like I've just met the end of the respawn timer, so let's go ahead and clean these two up. And after spending a great deal of time on this quest, I am able to attack this final fin creeper that I need here, and I can put down this blister on the land, and with this fin creeper dying, I will have completed the quest, and then I can head back to the Greenwarden and turn it in and see what lies next from him. And here is Rethiel, our friend. Let's go ahead and turn in this quest, and I'll just pick up this sword because it should sell for the most. And with that, it looks like we have completed the quest chain with the Greenwarden. That was about 3 quests, and that was indeed a lengthy journey there, but a good journey because we have earned like 60-70% of a level there, so I feel pretty satisfied, and we got some decent gear from it as well. This requires herbalism. You can blast a target for 35 nature damage. That is very interesting, very fun. I was thinking about heading towards the excavation site, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that for the next episode, because as far as this episode goes, I'm going to go ahead and call it good here. Hope you all enjoyed watching through this. I very much enjoyed playing through this and exploring these quests and helping out the Greenwarden here. I had quite a bit of fun. Even if the last quest was a little bit on the lengthy side, I still enjoyed doing that. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember, drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe. And I will see you next time in the world of Azeroth. Goodbye.